Good evening, everybody. It's Friday night. What else do you have to do besides watch me ramble incoherently? Tonight, even though it's about midway through November and most people have Thanksgiving on their mind, or they're even thinking about Christmas, I'm still going to stick to the Halloween vibes and talk about a truly terrifying beast, the monster known as the supply chain crisis. So grab a drink, pull up a chair, and let's chat. All right, so here we are. They actually had a guest and perhaps two lined up that were going to come on and talk with me about this topic that's all over the news lately. But unfortunately, they couldn't make it, so you're going to have to listen to just me instead. And again, we're hearing so much about this; it's all over the news. Everything from meatflation and the grocery shortages to even the ruination of Christmas this year because people can't get a hold of supplies. And so I'm going to talk more about how it's affecting the comic industry, and more specifically Ovation Comics, because as our recent Kickstarter backers know, I have two that are still in production, and I'm increasingly concerned about how they'll be fulfilled. So that will be tonight's topic. Um, as always, I take any questions you might have, any comments. um, the One of the first things that brought it to my attention was Heidi McDonald's Comics Beat column. And she recently had one that really talked about this specific issue. And I'm going to read some of that. Part of that even was that she referred to an email that Image Comics had sent to retailers. And obviously, Image is a pretty significant player. And because of some of these same frustrations that have been going on, this is what they had sent to retailers. First things first, as many of you are now undoubtedly aware, the current shipping delays, supply chain crunch, and paper shortages are creating nationwide issues across many industries, and that impacts our industry too. I'm sure every publisher will have a different response to this crisis, but at Image, we're proactively streamlining our releases to reflect these circumstances. Starting now and for the foreseeable future, there will be no second printings of any title. Please keep this in mind as you order. There will be limited stock available for reorders, and we will not be reprinting anything that sells through at the distributor level. We're also adjusting the schedule of upcoming titles over the next few weeks to reflect a more responsible usage of raw material availability. Um, and I think they have actually come back and I don't want to say redacted, but added to those comments and tried to clarify and make some adjustments based on some of the retailer reactions. But the bottom line is there's only so much they can control. So despite fans being upset and retailers, obviously it does not make things any easier for them who are already understaffed and dealing with so many distribution issues as it were lately. But there's really not much that can be done about some of this. Again, referring to Heidi's article where she's talking about the various issues such as a paper shortage, printing shortages, and part of the printing issues is that there's been a dramatic reduction in major printers in the United States. So um, if people aren't able to get printed materials reliably from overseas, it's hard to have anywhere here in the U.S. to make up for that. Obviously, the shipping crunch. So there's a trucking backload. I was reading again today about the severe shortage of truckers and everything else. Obviously, is making it a very rocky period for the whole comic supply chain. I saw another article in Vox, and according to the industry tracker MPG BookScan, printed book sales have increased 13.2% from 2020 to 2021 and 21% from 2019 to 2021. Usually a good year means going up maybe 3 or 4%, says MPD Books analyst Krista McLean. The growth that we saw last year and this year is pretty unprecedented. And I think that's true of most consumer goods, is that consumer demand is unprecedented for so many products, which puts a severe impact on the materials used for them and then the availability of those products to begin with. So inventory issues are ongoing. There's port shutdowns, labor shortages. We keep hearing more and more about that. A record number of people have quit their jobs again in September. Again, the lack of domestic printers to pick up the slack is really tough. And as Heidi McDonald says, as for what the ripple effect this will be, well, that was the topic of many speculative conversations at NYCC and Baltimore Comic Con. He talked to one industry insider who told her bluntly, there isn't any paper. So some publishers are foreseeing an inevitable rise in cover prices, a slowdown in variant editions, rising interest in back issues just because of the non-availability of new issues. And some are saying too, this could be more of a shift to digital. I don't know if that, I mean, that might be a temporary thing, but I don't think it would be ongoing. So that obviously is more dramatically impacting the major big publishers. They're hitting big print runs. Ovation Comics, our print runs are much more limited. And in the case of Kickstarter Fulfillment, where we really only, it's only essential that we hit the numbers of the backers to get those original books, even though the print runs, I always go over that because then we also are hitting retailers, usually through Maverick Distribution. And also we use them to go to trade shows and things like that. So obviously I want more than just the initial print run that's necessary for the Kickstarter backers, but that is the primary concern at this point. Unfortunately, one of the things I've struggled with, I think I've had a lot of success with Kickstarters and fulfillment. One of the things I've struggled with though is reliable fulfillment timing. And it's pretty frustrating that it's been a very high percentage of my campaigns, and this is going to probably contribute even more to two that I have outstanding right now, which is Infinity Agents issue number 3 and Mask issue number 3. The artwork is done, fully lettered, but I mean, what can you do? I can't get mad at the printers. They're overworked and usually understaffed. They're dealing with material shortages. And that's even hitting us with cost increases too that weren't expected. And when you plan a Kickstarter a year or more in advance, you try to do some, obviously the budgeting is as specific as possible, but you don't anticipate this on the opposite end. Now, the good thing for backers is they paid for their products in advance, so there won't be any extra costs, but there's kind of an ugly side for the publishers on this end when there's all these additional costs that you hadn't anticipated. And then combine that with shipping delays, it makes for an unsatisfied customer base. So that's not what we want, but we're going to do our best. Like I said, I can't be mad at the publishers. I can't be mad at the screen printers of the t-shirts or all the merchandise we have in production. They're doing the best they can to get it to us as soon as we can. But now, unfortunately, it's also pushed it back to the seasonal crunch, which makes fulfillment even more difficult because, especially with the e-commerce at an all-time high, the shipping delays are hitting there. My day job, we work for a company that does e-commerce and mail order, and already some of the shippers are doing limits, restrictions on how your package output. So that's how strapped they are. So that'll be another hurdle that'll probably impact to that. In fact, the company I work for, I know it's estimated that for the catalog industry, 100 million catalogs will not be printed this year due to paper shortages and staffing shortages at the printing plants. 100 million that were planned that won't be printed this year. The company I work for was able to work through this with some good relationships with printers, and then making some minor adjustments, like maybe doing a different quality cover on the catalogs. But we've heard of one major catalog company that was told by the printer, we can't mail any of your catalogs in the month of November. And another one that had their circulation cut by 7 million catalogs. I mean, that's a dramatic impact on the bottom line of companies. So thankfully, again, being a small press independent publisher, it's much less impactful on us. I don't have a circulation of 7 million, maybe someday. But still, nevertheless, it is still going to hurt us for our delivery expectations. So I'm doing my best to keep everyone informed, and communicating all of the updates as they come forward. And if anything dramatic happens, good or bad, then I'll be shouting that to make sure everyone knows too. As you can see now, I still don't have my high-tech scenario studio I've been planning on, but I am in my new temporary location. If you'll recall, some of you, that I recently sold my house. I'm currently living in a temporary situation where I look for a new home. So I still don't have my final new studio. But what I do have is some good space right here, and everything is very well organized. As soon as the inventory comes in, I'll be able to jump right on it, and we'll be able to pack, ship, and fulfill almost immediately. So that's the good thing. It's just waiting on stuff to come in, and realistically, we don't really know. There's a lot of unknowns there. And I do have I have my primary. I'm not going to mention the printers' names because they're good people and they're doing their best, and I'm very happy with them. Um, and they're trying to prioritize my projects. But I do have two different backup printers that possibly could jump in. One of them isn't in a position to do that at this moment, but if possible, they might be able to. And the second one might be able to if we run into a snag. So again, because it's two products that have to be pushed out really at the same time and then fulfilled at the same time. All of this now has impacted not only our fulfillment plans, but also production plans, because there was plans for doing two more projects that were supposed to launch this year, and I've now decided to postpone them into 2022, because if we can't fulfill what's already been promised, then there's really no point to market and try to pre-sell more projects. That's just foolish. So well, the biggest one, as you can see on the screen here, is Thistleheart. It's our new dark fantasy series with artwork by Luigi Baricelli. It is amazing. And I'm in the process of finalizing the colorists. So that book will be fully illustrated when it goes to Kickstarter. The plan now is for that to go in January. So I hope you'll all look for that. And then as I look back to my board here, in the plans, we've got Bird early 2022. We'll also have Birdwood Stick issues 2 and 3, Infinity Agents issues 4, and The Mask issue 4, Battle Royale Planet issue number 2, a new series which I can't. Yeah, I'll give you the title. It's called Spilt Milk, and that is issue number 1. Another kind of darker saga. All of that is planned for next year, so we're going to keep our fingers crossed, that the production issues, the supply chain crisis, all of that doesn't continue into next year, at least not deep into next year. I was talking with a friend of mine, and they said they don't even really understand what the supply chain crisis is, what that means, and obviously there's all kinds of components and complexities of that, but basically the biggest issues are happening in from the production of a product, then being shipped to a warehouse, and then from the warehouse being shipped either to a retailer, or if it's like an e-commerce site, being shipped directly to the consumer. And along that entire journey, from ideation to getting it into the hands of consumers, there are all kinds of steps that are just struggling with labor shortages, material shortages, and transportation issues. Maybe this new infrastructure plan will help with some of that. I don't know in the coming years. But what we're trying to do is survive as a small press publisher by focusing on one project at a time, the most immediate need, making our customers happy, and showing that we can deliver. Again, sometimes that's the benefit of being smaller, is that you can work with smaller printers that are able to handle smaller print jobs. Makes sense, right? So we don't have to go to war with some of the major publishers. I mean, I feel bad for the ones who are level below the major players, the mid-tier ones, because they're trying to do higher volume, but they can't compete with the big ones. So that's where they're probably struggling to get print time. Ours isn't so bad, but realistically, even the small presses are facing issues. So all to say, I just wanted to talk a little bit about that production issues, how we're facing it, how we're going to get through it, and looking forward to the new year, the new projects, and reassuring our faithful backers and supporters that, again, we always deliver. I'm ashamed to say that I've had too many projects deliver later than I had planned. It's not fully unexpected with small press, but it doesn't mean I like it. In fact, it's not fully unexpected with the major publishers, but I still don't like it. I like having happy readers, happy customers getting it when they thought they were going to get it. But if anybody, I have quite a few readers who have backed every single project that I have ever produced through Ovation Comics, and they know that they always do get the products. It gets delivered. So that's that. Quick update on a show that was delayed, I think twice, and now we're on a Friday night. Probably not the best time for gaining an audience. As always, this show will be rebroadcast on Instagram, and I'm still always looking for ideas for future episodes. Guests you'd like to see me talk again. I was supposed to have guests talking about this issue, people who are on the inside of the workings of what's going on. One from a printer and one from a distribution company who are going to talk about what they're going through. But part of the stress of their jobs is why they weren't unable to make it here tonight, which is unfortunate because no one likes stress at work, especially this time of year. Also, the future, I'm going to finally be able to rig up the dog cam so you guys can stay. You can look at the interns, Odin and Kaiji, rather than my ugly mug. And I think, honestly, that's about all I got to say. I don't see any questions in here, which isn't so bad. I don't see anybody screaming because products are late. But remember, I promised you those products. Those products will be delivered. We'll get through this supply chain crisis, this monster that's still haunting us well after Halloween. Is causing inconvenience, but it won't be the end of the world. It certainly won't be the end of the world for Ovation Comics. There's more to come, bigger and better. So thank you for joining. And I'll be on again soon talking about hopefully good news. So until then, roast.